What's up guys, Sidu here. In today's video we're going to define the term overextending. Overextending is a very loose term that many people use, but not many people know the actual meaning. After watching today's video you should have a clear idea of what overextending is and how to avoid being caught by it. First of all, we have the question, what is overextending? Overextending happens when DPS classes push in too far to the opposing team, either moving too far away from healing spells or line of sighting their healers. Overextending is mainly caused by overzealous DPS trying to score their kill, and normally happens when either the DPS have offensive cooldowns popped or have crowd controls out. Unfortunately for a healer, there's nothing you can physically do to prevent them from overextending besides staying calm, speaking clearly, and communicating well. Letting them know when they're pushing in too far and line of sighting your healing is really important so they can turn around. Communicating is key in breaking through this miserable routine that almost all DPS go through, so if this happens to you, make sure you speak up. Here we have a game of FOS vs DK Shadow Priest Resto Shaman. Here in this clip you can see we have insane early pressure onto this team, and the opposing team feels the only way they can alleviate this pressure is by counter pressuring us popping cooldowns. So you see the DK pops his gargoyle, and he's getting ready to attack me to try and counter pressure us, but he's making a big mistake. You can see how far this DK is overextended, putting himself in a terrible situation. Here in this freeze frame you can really see how far this DK is overextended. If you look closely at my player frame, you can see the shaman standing at the far pillar, and the DK is literally on the opposite end of the map, a whole 60 to 70 yards gap between those two, with him at 10%. In this situation, this DK thought he could get counter pressure going on me with early cooldowns, but he is very mistaken. At this point, there is no return for him. He is way too far from his shaman, he cannot get healed, he cannot get spirit linked, he pushed in much too far. My warlock is in between him and the shaman, so if the shaman tries to push up, he's going to get feared, and they are in a miserable spot. Sure enough, this DK realizes that he's way too far pushed in, and he tries to make his way back, but it is much too late. The Soul Drain comes in, and shortly after, this DK goes down. Here in this clip you can see overextending is very dangerous. I'm not saying there's not a time to do it, but you have to be very careful when you do it, and in this situation, he was wrong. Here in this clip the tables have turned, and I am forced in the bad situation with my DPS overextending. Though this is a low pressure 2s game, this is a prime example of the worst case scenario you can have when a DPS is overextending. You can see my monk slowly getting baited into the middle of the map, putting the warlock in between both me and him. This puts me in a spot where if I leave the pole, the warlock is sitting there ready to cast a fear, and if I don't, I am unable to heal my monk. Here you can see this warlock putting himself in a position to make sure I'm unable to leave this pole. Like I said, this is the worst case scenario you can be in as a healer with your DPS overextending. Your DPS is very far away, out of heal range, and you have a DPS in between both of you, making you unable to leave the pole. If you push out, you're going to get CC'd. If you don't push out, your DPS can die. Although, like I said, this is a very low pressure game, if this was in any type of 3v3 situation, my monk could easily be dead here. What you need to do in this situation is let your monk know that he's pushed out way too far. It's not worth exposing your position in order to help him. He needs to get back to you, and you are not in the wrong. As soon as you let him know that he needs to get back to you, if he's not on his way back, you can easily lose the match. Sure enough, after letting my monk know he's pushed in too far, I decide not to expose my position, and I keep line of sighting this warlock while my monk comes back to me. He does a great job getting back, but it was a rough situation for a short period of time, but we do manage to get through it. Once again, I'm put in a similar situation, but in a much scarier environment. Overextending in 3s is much more deadly than overextending in 2s. As you can see here, my DPS are pushed in very far, and it exposes my position, allowing the warlock to cast a fear on me. Luckily I have wind shear. At this point in time I pull back to the pole and I try not to expose my position, and I'm yelling at my DPS to let them know they're pushed in too far. Fortunately for me, I have a grounding available and the warlock ports away, so I'm able to sneak out of this situation, but it is very rough to be in. Although you can't prevent overextending from your DPS, you can protect yourself with wind shears and groundings. If you hold your position until you have a wind shear and grounding up, you're able to safely push through the middle of the map, stopping opponents from trying to CC you on the way. As you can see, overextending can be deadly, it can be frustrating, but it also can be avoided. Make sure to keep your DPS in check, and don't be afraid to speak up and let them know if they're pushing out too far and putting you in a bad spot. If your DPS are overextending and can't get back to you, try and hold your position long enough to buy you enough time to have a wind shear and grounding available to safely pass through the center of the map. If you're able to overcome this common occurrence of rough positioning, you're going to do much better in Arena. Hope this helps, and thanks for watching.